Generally, we find ourselves in a media landscape where a lot of journalists have capacity issues, limited capacity issues. Also, incidentally, in a field where there's a lot of changes coming up every now and then. For every advancement in technology, the media landscape changes, and and the journalist must adapt, must learn, must know how to deal with them because it changes the entire landscape, how information is spread, how we create information and all that. And then there's also limited resources that comes with practicing as a journalist and with the media houses in there. So that is at one side, capacity issues, limited resources issues. Then on the other side, we live in a landscape again or environment that is also changing. In a space where we need to train journalists to adapt, especially on violent extremism, which has been some of the focus of the conversation, on issues on ethnic and chieftaincy conflict that is also coming up. And also in the year that we speak, 2024, Ghana is just a few months away of also going to the election. So the nexus of these factors, capacity issues, limited resources issues, then issues of violent extremism, which is spreading widely, then the issues of conflict, chieftaincy, and ethnic conflict, and then the elections, present opportunity that we don't have to miss it. We need to get the journalists trained. We need to build their capacities to be able to face the challenges and address them. Because at the heart of all this problem is the media and their role to ensure that there's peace, there's sustainability, and all that. Doing the wrong or doing the right thing. Look, like I'm saying, there's a lot of challenges in terms of even ownership issues. You see, a lot of media houses today are owned by politicians. Politicians who want to use the media as their tool, their weapon, for their political agenda and stuff like that. The journalist has very poor working conditions. All those things are temptations that can skew, the quality of journalism, professionalism and ethical standards. Yes, there's so much to say about ethical standards dropping, so much to say about professional standards not being on the path that we want to look at. But also there's some hope for us, in the sense that a lot of the media houses are popping up. You have very young people, some also middle-aged, older people who still have the appetite to do some good journalism, to use journalism as a platform to address the issues of society, to ensure that democracy and all those things are consolidated in our society, which is where we want to dwell so much attention to and harness that and develop it to bring the necessary impact we think we can get. Particularly on the field that I took journalists on, fact checking, information disorder, fighting misinformation, countering polarizing narratives, and all that. It's a changing field, right? It's a field that is new and emerging, I must say. And so, even when you give us 1 week, it may not be sufficient to say we have treated exhaustively all that there is to be said about this conversation. Our joy is that we met journalists who were interested, who were willing to learn, who were willing to engage. In the last 2 days, we've exposed them to fact checking, countering false narratives, some of the tools that are available, some of the skill sets, the critical thinking abilities that they should have read their minds to when they meet content that is making claims that can be fact checked and all that. And that is the excitement. We are hoping that the journalists, the skills that they have learned, they could put them into use to bring the outcome that we are looking for. Well, my response is that it's not a problem that necessarily we have to put at the feet of the regulator. From the onset, when Ghana came to the Fourth Republic, our constitution decided to make practice of journalism one that is open, that people can freely practice. Of course, based on the history from which we are coming from, the history of repression, the history of suppressing journalists, threatening journalists, arresting journalists, silencing them, and all that. We didn't want to put our constitution, the framers of our law thought that it wasn't right to put into the hands of a government institution or anybody the right to declare who can be a journalist and who cannot. Recognizing the crucial role that the media must play in ensuring accountability, transparency, and all that. Well, the downside is that now we have the liberalized airwaves in a way that people have a lot of people can now pick up cameras and stuff like that and begin to practice. Our solution should not necessarily be shut them down, withdraw license or start issuing license so that you can control the quality of journalism that is there. The fear and what we are learning across West Africa and across the African continent is that governments are beginning to use that to silence critical journalists. Journalists who are doing some good work, they suspect that you are bringing them down. The next moment they've withdrawn your license and say you can't practice anymore. We don't want to do that. What we have to do is therefore meet the challenge on the other side of trying to supplement it with training, capacity, calling on media owners to do what is right. Yes, you may pick somebody from the streets, from funeral, from church program, thinking that they are very vocal, and so you can put them on radio. But when you bring them on, let us do the right thing of giving them a hands-on training. You see, practical training where they can learn and pick up the pieces, from every field, whether you are trained or not. Sometimes when you are given the necessary training, on the job training, you can somewhat meet the demands and deliver, which is what we want to do. To say that we want to blame regulator or stuff like that may not be the way to go, given our history. I think that to a good extent, Ghana's democracy is up there in the context of West Africa and Africa at large because of how active and strong our media is. If we try anything that attempts to shut down the media, there may be a lot more chaos, a lot more rot and corruption in the system than we are experiencing. My name is Kwaku Krobea Asante. I'm a senior program officer of the Media Foundation for West Africa.